CDL and all the rest of you here. I've heard some great comments about things. One is we all support the Second Amendment. What is it in the Arizona Constitution? Do you guys know? Article 2, Section 26. Article 2 is all about your individual rights. That is where we speak to your right to your self-defense, so don't lose sight of it. So when we discuss legislation down here, whatever it may be, it has to refer back to the Constitution of the state of Arizona. And then, of course, the Second Amendment as well. So if I said anything that would be comforting, the only way to change that is, in the case of the federal Constitution, it's an Article 5 action to remove it. And nobody in Congress will dare do that. I can assure you that will be the death knell for them. And nobody here in Arizona is going to make an amendment to the Constitution to repeal Section 26 of Article 2. Okay, so that's a guarantee. Your right will never go away. But let's talk about the other side of the coin here, because I think something that's been touched on here and expressed, besides ignorance. Ignorance is something it's worthwhile to help people overcome if they're willing to do it. If they want to be blissfully ignorant, leave them there, take their voter card from them, because they're not responsible for what they do. But when it comes to things, let's talk about this session, for example. In the Senate, I have a bill that's about brass knuckles. Are you familiar with that? It basically says we're going to ban brass knuckles. It started out banning a total ban. Now they're going to exclude a certain segment of the age population. And I think the ladies in the red shirt, what do they call them? Moms demand something from some husband or somebody, or whatever the case may be. That's the right color shirt right there, by the way. You got to watch for that. Women for gun rights. But they come up and you say, well, what's behind this bill? And it turns out we want to protect the kids. All right. The ladies in the red shirt also came by, and what's a bill that's in the House that's not going to make it out of there, thanks to Quan Wynn? Something about giving you a tax break on buying a gun lock device, and something else related to securing your gun. And I asked the lady, well, what's behind that? And she mentions a 15-year-old who got a hold of their parents' firearm. It wasn't secure, and whatever's going on, he ended up taking the life of another young person in her house. And I said, well, what became of that? I said, who was held responsible for it? Well, it's a child, this and that. I said, well, what about the parents? And they got a free pass. Apparently law enforcement, according to this woman. I said, well, there's your problem. It's not whether the gun lock was on there or not. It's called personal responsibility. Okay. Same thing with the brass knuckles. Who are they talking about? Remember the Gilbert Goons? They're the ones that a gang of well-to-do, well-heeled, well-financed kids allowed to roam the streets and conduct themselves in a manner, and brutally took a young man's life with a pair of brass knuckles. So then what do? How do they react? Out of ignorance, out of emotion, out of stupidity, they come up with these laws and say, well, we ban this. We won't ever have to worry about another child being hurt. We won't have to worry about another citizen being hurt. And I think it was either J.D. Vance or Trump, one of them, they were talking to the White House about the state of affairs and the families here. And it's pretty sad when they summarized it. We're not being responsible to raise our kids right. Enough of us, that is. Okay, we're not being responsible enough about holding people to account for their actions. I think it was Dennis Prager that says, measure people not by their words, measure them by their actions, and you go by that. So what do? They have these things that are fallacies that they present at the legislature, and I call it, I think you guys know Thomas Sowell, right? Okay, Thomas Sowell's great mind. The guy used to be a liberal, and he's kind of changed his ways as he's gotten further along in his life. He talks about fallacies. He says they're not crazy laws when you're talking about legislation. He says they have logic to them. They have plausibility to them. He says, but the problem is they got something missing. And what happens, whatever the law is, if it becomes, that fallacy becomes law, later on you find a legislature going, oh, an unintended consequence. So now we got to make another law to correct that law that we made, and that's why the books are so fat here. Okay, my job is supposed to be a part-time job. Unfortunately, My wife came to realize it ain't. You know, but that's how it goes. So what I would suggest to the audience, when you want to engage people, besides informing them and educating them, call them out about personal responsibility. That's something we got to bring back to the forefront. And I can guarantee you, if you're successful at that, in that endeavor, you'll reduce the suicides, you'll reduce the lethal deaths that take place unnecessarily, and you'll find it's healthier for our children and our prosperity going forward. So I won't belabor all the good things you guys did, because you covered it all today. Glad you're here. And hopefully after I walk off the stage, the wind stops. Okay, would you like that? Okay, now nobody's going, get off the stage. I want to have this happen. But let me assure you, I'm there for you. You guys got bills you got concerned about, reach out to me. Cheryl knows that. She can reach out to me all the time. Know your Arizona Constitution, please. There's things in there that we're violating right now, like the 30th Amendment. That's something else. But anyway, I'm here for you. I'll always be true to it as long as I breathe and I can do this, and yawn as well. And I wish you all Godspeed and safety today, and think about those things where you can help and be more participative in government. It gets my back. You guys got your back when it comes to legislation. I need your back when it comes to being vocal about supporting our rights. So I thank you all. God bless you. Be safe.